सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। नमः श्री शंकरानंद नमः श्री शंकरानंद गुरुपादाम्बुजन्मने गुरुपादाम्बुजन्मने सविलास महामोह सविलास महामोह ग्राहग्रासैककर्मणे ग्राहग्रासैककर्मणे। We are discussing the 11th chapter of Paṃcadaśī, which is known as Brahmananda, where the author is showing how Brahma is of the nature of Ananda, happiness. And the discussion that is presently going on pertains to the experience of deep sleep, where it is said here that in deep sleep, one experiences happiness or joy, one experiences nothing but Brahma. So the point that is being made here is that in the state of deep sleep, this jiva, the individual self, really becomes one with the self, one with Brahma, and therefore he becomes Brahma. He experiences the joy that is Brahma. That means deep sleep is what we call the experience of Brahma. For that, to explain that, various illustrations have been given, different arguments are being made. Number one, it was said that in the state of deep sleep there is no samsara, there is no sense of limitation, there is no grief, there is no shoka or grief or sadness or any complexes or a sense of limitation, which is what we call samsara. Why is it so? It was said in the very early stages that because in the deep sleep one has crossed that barrier which deprives one of the happiness that is one's own self. So self is the nature of happiness, and still I do not normally experience it. The reason is there is a barrier, and that barrier is that identification with the body, identification with the upadhi, and that identification makes me take myself to be a small or limited individual being, because then I become as big or as small as that with which I am identified. Thus, when I am identified with the body, well, I am as good as the body, meaning I also become mortal because body is subject to death. When I am identified with my mind and the intellect, then also I suffer from all the limitations of the mind and intellect. And therefore, when I am identified with this upadhi, then I suffer from a sense of limitation, which is what we call, that alone is the source of all our grief or sorrow. There is no other cause. And what happens in deep sleep? It is said, tatra vedaha aveda bhavati, tatra pita apita bhavati. Then the father becomes non-father. The blind becomes non-blind. The wounded becomes non-wounded. The sick becomes non-sick. What do you mean the sick becomes non-sick and the blind becomes non-blind? Because I am blind is a notion I entertain about the self only because of identification of the body. That is where the blindness is. So the blindness, or the fatherness, or the illness, or the wound, all of these are the attributes or characteristics of the body. So whenever I am identified with the body, then I take myself to be a father, I take myself to be wounded, I take myself to be ill, or whatever it is, and thus suffer the pain and limitations. When in deep sleep state, one gives up totally the identification with the body. Because in deep sleep, I am not aware of my body. I am not aware of time. I am not aware of place. I am not aware of even my ahankara or the sense of individuality. I don't have any self-consciousness that I am so and so. Which self-consciousness in the waking state is always the cause of all kinds of complexes. I am free totally from all these complexes in the state of deep sleep. And therefore, in the deep sleep, one experiences a total freedom from shoka or grief. And then the argument is that the very absence of unhappiness itself is happiness. They are not two different things. It is not that we get rid of unhappiness and then we acquire happiness. These are not two separate things. Just as departure of darkness itself is the arrival of light. Both of them take place simultaneously. And so also, even the departure of grief or unhappiness itself is a state of what we call happiness or ananda. Meaning that the unhappiness or the pain or the grief that I am experiencing itself is an obstacle to the experience of the happiness which is my nature. And when that obstacle goes away, I remain the happy being. Therefore, in the deep sleep state, one experiences that happiness which is the nature of one's own self. And to explain that, various quotations were given from the Shruti. In the verse 45 it was said, Tasramasya punatyartham jivo dhavet paratmani. It was said, see, in the waking state, there is a lot of shrama or exertion. Because whenever there is identification with the body, whenever I am experiencing a complex or self-consciousness about myself, when I take myself to a limited being, or whenever I have a complex about myself that I am so and so, but I suffer from a sense of limitation, I am constantly bearing that burden of a sense of limitation in the waking state as well as in the dream state. And therefore this jiva, the individual self, being tired of this burden, wants to give up that burden. That's the reason why the author says, how one takes all the care to prepare one's bed. So, as though one is waiting, expecting something very desirable to happen. And therefore we make sure that the bed is very comfortable, and warm, and soft, and whatever. Why do you make such a preparation? That itself shows that he is expecting something very pleasant. Somebody says that, no, that is because you have pain and therefore you want to become free from the pain. No. If the person is ill, then maybe he becomes free from pain. But even a healthy person also makes sure that his bed is very comfortable. That shows that one expects that experience of happiness in the deep sleep state. And as we say, being tired because of the burden that one has to carry, of that sense of individuality coming from the identification with the body, which burden one carries in the states of the waking in the dream state. Tas sramasya apanutyartham, in order to get rid of that burden, jivo dhavet paratmani, this jiva, the individual self, runs. And the examples will be given, just as a bird in the evening runs towards his nest, just as a bird, having flown all over, looking for food or whatever it is, and then tired, how in the evening the bird runs towards its nest, where it expects to repose in happiness. And similarly also is jiva, the individual being, having striven hard work, for happiness in the waking and dream states, being tired, runs towards its own nest. Jivo dhavet paratmani, the jiva, the individual self, runs towards paratma, or its limitless self, which is his true nature, which is what he experiences in deep sleep state. Tenaikyam prapti tatratyah brahmananda swayam bhavet. And what happens in deep sleep is, I become one with my own self. Sata somne tada sampanno bhavati. Says Chandogya Upanishad, that in the state of deep sleep, this jiva, the individual, becomes one with Brahma. Because I am Brahma, the self is Brahma. It's not that I become Brahma, I am Brahman. But still I don't experience that in the waking and the dream states only because of that identification with the Upadi. And when that identification goes away, the only thing that was a barrier, an obstacle to my being one with myself, that obstacle is gone away. And therefore, in the deep sleep state, this jiva, the individual being, becomes totally identified with Brahman, which is his own self. And tatratyah brahmananda, and that brahmananda, the ananda, which is Brahma, which obtains in the state of deep sleep, he becomes one with that. Thus proving that Atma is Brahman, and that is of the nature of ananda or limitlessness, and That limitlessness is that which is experienced by everyone in the state of deep sleep. And this is how the author shows that Brahma is of the nature of Ananda. And various illustrations were given. Illustration was given of a falcon, of a bird. Sometimes the bird is tied with a thread. It may be tied to a post, or somebody sometimes a hunter may tie the bird with a thread and then tie it with his own hand, and the bird will fly around looking for food and getting tired. How it comes back to its resting place. How also in the evening, for example, as we said, the bird having flown all around in the waking, during the day, how being tired, it runs towards its own nest. And similarly also, this jiva also runs towards a state of deep sleep. One looks forward to that. And subsequently it will be said also, one doesn't want to come out of that experience, if one can have. If the alarm clock does not ring, I don't care. Really, I don't miss much. Later on I realize I missed the class and what it is, and then I feel bad about it. But at that time, as I know, you see, when we often wake up at night sometimes, and look at the clock, it's 2:30, thank God. Still 2 hours to go. And those 2 hours are just amazing, fantastic. And so how I look forward to the experience of deep sleep shows that one is waiting for that. So the author says, one runs towards that experience. Well, of course, one cannot remain in that state all the time, because it is my own karma or my own actions or my own unsatiated or unsatisfied desires that wake me up, which is also all right, because I'm not quite satisfied with that. I do experience happiness in deep sleep, all right, but I'm not aware of that. And therefore, what I want is that happiness with awareness. That's one thing that is lacking in deep sleep. Otherwise, there is no need for us to wake up. Now, of course, his life need not have been there, but the deep sleep is not sufficient because that awareness is not there. What I want is happiness, awareful happiness, effortless happiness, boundless happiness. Everything we experience, that boundless, effortless happiness, we do experience in deep sleep, but not awarefulness. And therefore, I don't get satisfied by that experience of deep sleep. Although I get refreshed, all right, but I'm not satisfied, and therefore, I conscientiously then seek an experience of happiness where there is awareness also. And then in last verses that we did, from verse 50 to 53, the author here explains a statement from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, to explain what is Ananda or what is happiness, several illustrations are given. One illustration that is given is that of an infant. Says verse 50, Atibalas tanam pitva mrudushayagato hasan ragadveshadyanutpattehe anandayika svabhavak. How an infant, having well fed by the mother, then lies in its little, the crib, in the soft bed, and there it is happy, because there is no obstacle to his happiness. The infant doesn't have any raga or dvesha, does not have any attachment, aversion, nothing. It doesn't recognize anything also. Therefore, even if an enemy comes, suppose somebody comes to hurt that infant still will laugh at it, because it doesn't know it is an enemy for a friend, because it doesn't have that awareness. It is total, an infant means totally abhusa, meaning totally without any discrimination at all. So raga dveshas are not developed yet. But anyway, infant therefore represents a state of mind which is totally free from raga dvesha, and how that infant enjoys the happiness devoid of any raga dvesha. So that is one illustration of Ananda. Another illustration was given, and that was that of a king. Maharaja sarvabhaumah santruptah sarvabhogataha. Imagine a sovereign who is king of the whole earth, let us say. Unrivaled kingdom he has, and he has everything in his command, and therefore all the objects of pleasure or enjoyment that he wants are all with him, and the capability of enjoying them also is with him. In that case, also he is happy inasmuch as there is no obstacle to his happiness. Again, he doesn't have raga and dvesha. In the infant, raga dvesha are not there because they are not developed yet. In the king, they are all developed, but there is no need because all his desires are satisfied and therefore he experiences a state of mind free from raga dveshas and therefore also enjoys that ananda. In third illustration was given, and that was of a Brahma, of a wise man. Mahavipro Brahmavedi Krutakrutyattva Lakshanam Vidyanandasya Paramam Kashtham Prapyavatishtade. That's a real illustration. That how a wise man who has become free from likes and dislikes. An infant, likes and dislikes have not shown up yet. Therefore also is free. A king, his likes and dislikes are all satisfied. Therefore also they don't show up. A wise man has become free from likes and dislikes, knowing fully well that there is no cause for like and dislike because everything is Purnam for a wise man, and therefore being free from likes and dislikes in the light of the knowledge or enlightenment, therefore he also enjoys ananda or happiness which is of the nature of Brahma. Vidyanandasya paramam kashtham prapya avatishtade. How this wise man also, having attained the ultimate in the happiness, he abides in himself. So these illustrations are given to show how the Atma or the Self is of the nature of happiness, and therefore one does experience that happiness in that state of deep sleep. Then someone asked the question, how come you give only these three illustrations and not other illustrations? Says in the world only these three fellows are happy. Infant, meaning one who has no discrimination at all. A king who has all the discrimination and everything at his disposal. And a wise man who is enlightened. Everybody else is all unhappy, in between. So, say verse 53, Mugdha buddhādi buddhānām loke siddha sukhatmara udahrutānām anyetu dukkhinona sukhatmadaha. So, among those who have no discrimination, the infant. Among those who have the discrimination, the king. And among those who have wisdom, the wise man. In the world you can expect these three to be happy. The rest of them, their happiness is always mixed with unhappiness. That's in Sanskrit there is a subhashita. Yasya mudhatamo loke, yasya buddhev parangataha. One is mudhatamaha. Well, absolutely stupid. Meaning, mudha means stupid. Mudhatama, absolutely stupid. Either that, or yasya buddhev parangataha. Or the one who has attained the highest that the intellect can achieve. Dvavamo sukhamedhete. These two people are happy. Klishhyate antarito janaha. In between, everybody is unhappy. So absolutely stupid and absolutely genius, I guess, they alone can be happy. Everybody else in between are unhappy. Therefore, these illustrations were given here. So, all right. Now we continue our discussion from verse 54. That this infant is an illustration of happiness, the sovereign is an illustration of happiness, or a wise man is an illustration of happiness. All right. Bhavantu ete sukhinaha. Let these three people be happy. Prakriti kimayatam. What relevance do these illustrations have with reference to what we are discussing? Meaning that Brahma is of the nature of Ananda, this is what you want to show, and what is the relevance of these three illustrations? Itāsaṅkhya dārshtāntika śruti-vākyasya tātparimaha. In the next verse, the author shows the tātparya, the purport of these illustrations. Says the verse 54, Kumara Devayam Brahmanandaika Tatparaha Stri Parishvaktavad Veda Nabāhyam Nāpi Chantaram. Kumara, just as the illustration that we gave, that of an infant, that of a king, or that of a wise man, Ayam Brahman Ekatatparaha. Kumara Vatha Anandabhariha. Evam Ayamapi. Similarly also this fellow, meaning who is one? The one who is fast asleep. Ayamapi, Ayam Visvasuptaha, Brahmananda Ekatatparaha. The idea is that even the one who is in deep sleep, he also is happy, just as an infant is happy, and just as that king is happy, just as a wise man is happy, and so also the one in the deep sleep is happy in the same way. Because as I said, in the deep sleep also, there are no obstacles to that happiness. Brahmanandika bhagityartha, and there one experiences Brahmananda, meaning Ananda, which is Brahma, because Brahman is a self, and one merges into oneself, and therefore experiences Ananda, that is Brahma. In the second line of the verse, the author refers to a statement from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where another illustration is given for this Ananda, which also is an illustration that is sometimes given in the Upanishads. Brahmanandeka paratve yukti pradarshanapanam. So, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad gives an illustration to give an idea of what is Brahmananda, what is Ananda of Brahma, that is Brahma, by showing yukti or showing also reason. Tadyatha priyaya striya samparishvaktah na bāhyam kinchana veda. Gives illustration of a man who embraces his beloved. Samparishvaktah na bāhyam kinchana veda. At that time, how one does not know anything that is outside. Na antaram, doesn't know anything that is inside. Meaning one becomes totally absorbed in that experience of happiness. Evameva ayam purushah prajnena atmana samparishvaktah. Similarly also this jiva also embraces. Who does he embrace in deep sleep? Embraces Brahma. Meaning one becomes one with Brahma. In that embrace, that duality goes away, and what obtains is just oneness. That's the reason why one forgets everything outside, inside and whatever. And therefore one has an experience of the non-dual happiness there. And just as there is an illustration of this embrace of the two beloved, and similarly also in the deep sleep state, there is an embrace. The jiva, the individual self, embraces Brahma. Evamevayam purusha prajnena atmana samparishvaktah. This jiva also being totally identified with Brahman, which is equivalent to saying that he embraces Brahman. Na bāhyam kinchana veda, na antaram. And therefore in the deep sleep state, this one does not know anything outside, or nor does he know anything inside. Meaning devoid of even the idea of outside and inside, devoid of the idea of this and that, or devoid of ideas of the duality. So where the duality is absent, where the non-duality is, that is where the Ananda is. We discussed this earlier also, that in a moment of extreme happiness, moment of what we call ecstasy, there is no awareness of duality at all. Normally I have the awareness of this complex that I am so and so. And whenever I have the awareness I am so and so, with that so and so, some problems are always associated. I may be a man, I may be a woman, I am a teacher, I am a student, I am a father, I am son, regardless of what notion I have about myself, that every notion is always associated with some kind of a limitation. And when for a moment I experience something that fascinates me, or that captures my imagination, or that, then I get absorbed in that experience of happiness, and momentarily that self-awareness or the sense of limitation is gone. Even the enjoyer also is no more there. As long as that sense is there, there is always a limitation in the intensity of the happiness that I experience. It is not that all the time we experience that intense happiness. We feel happy when we eat pizza also. But still, depends on how much you love. Maybe a child will completely forget itself, because he gets a slice of pizza and he gets heavens. Maybe he may experience at that moment that the joy of oneness or non-duality. You and I may require something more than a pizza, I guess, But anyway, whatever that is, that somehow makes me forget myself, which I'm overjoyed by the very sight, and I completely forget myself momentarily in that experience. That experience of intense happiness or ecstasy is nothing but the experience of non-duality. So duality is an obstacle to happiness. Even the awareness of duality is an obstacle to happiness. That's the reason why people go in for alcohol and drugs and stuff like that, where they forget that non-duality. Because the duality is always a burden, and one wants to become free from the burden. You can fall asleep, but in sleep again there is no awareness. I guess when you take drugs, etc., there is awareness also of some kind, And so that forgetting or becoming free from that complexes or problems also is there, and awareness also is there. So in short, the real happiness is experienced when there is freedom from duality. So non-duality and ananda are both one. And so that is what one experiences in deep sleep. Iti jyotirbrahmanagaram vakyam asatah anukramade. So this statement which I just read, which is from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad in a section called Jyotir Brahmana. Brihadaranyaka is a very beautiful Upanishad. It's a very vast, a very big text, having so many chapters and there are so many sections, and every section is a name. So every there are Brahmanas, and Brahmana has and then all Khanda, and the Khanda has all Khandikas, and then each one of them has a certain name. So much attention it has received and so much thought it has received from the commentators. So anyway, one particular section, which is the fourth Brahmana, which is called the Jyotir Brahmana, and that is where this statement comes. So referring to that, the author says in the second line, Stri Parishvaktavadveda Nabashyam Napi Chantaram. So just as Yathaloke Priya Stiya Alingitah Kami Bhakya Bhindar Vishaya Jnana Shunyatvat Sakhamurtir Bhavati. All that alingana or embrace, all that accomplishes is a total forgetfulness of the duality. And how therefore being totally absorbed in that experience, and one becomes free from the awareness of outside and inside and you and I and all duality. Sukhamurti Bhavati, one becomes the embodiment of happiness. Tatha sushuptau, so in the deep sleep state, Prajnena Paramatmana Aikyam Gato Jivaha, so in the state of deep sleep, this Jiva, the individual self, being totally identified, having become one with Brahman, which is Prajna. Bhashyādi Vishayajnana Bhavat, in the deep sleep, there is no awareness of outside or inside. Ananda Rupaya Bhavati, he remains of the nature, embodiment of happiness. Then deep sleep, the Jiva, the individual self, becomes embodiment of happiness. Just as an infant, just as a king, just as a wise man, and so forth, are sort of embodiments of happiness, and so also this individual in a state of deep sleep becomes embodiment of happiness. This text, this particular chapter only elaborately analyzes the experience of deep sleep. You can see how much thought has been given. We have been discussing it in several days, and we will continue to discuss for a few days to come. But different questions are raised about that experience. Now next question is, Nanu Saushupta Sukhasya Swaprakasha Sukhatvebi Brahmananda Swayam Bhavet Ityatra Uktam Brahma Rupatum Nasambhavati. Alright, Saushupta Sukhasya, the Sukha or the happiness that one experiences in the deep sleep state. Swaprakasha Sukhatvebi. Alright, let us say that the experience of deep sleep state is the experience of happiness. In self-revealing happiness also, that was also discussed earlier. That in the deep sleep state, we don't have mind, we don't have sense organs, and therefore, how can we experience happiness? Because in that discussion will come subsequently also, it was said that happiness is self-effulgent or self-revealing, and therefore, you don't require any sense organs to experience that happiness in deep sleep. Alright, happiness is there in deep sleep state, but how do you say there is Brahma in deep sleep state? You say it in the verse 45, Brahmananda Swayam Bhavet. That is, Jiva runs toward a state of deep sleep and himself becomes the embodiment of Ananda, which is Brahma. So how do you say that what obtains in the deep sleep is Brahma? What obtains in deep sleep is happiness, alright, but how do you say that it is Brahma? Mana Bhavat. What is the evidence or what is the proof? Iti Ashankya. Then you must quote always Yukti and Shruti. The statement of the Upanishad is quoted, Vijnanam Anandam Brahma. Says Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Brahma is Vijnanam Anandam. Vijnanam, awareness. Anandam, happiness. So Brahma is awareness, happiness. So where happiness is, awareness is. Awareness is intelligence. Awareness is consciousness. So that Ananda is also, what we call awareness or consciousness, also is Ananda or total fullness. That also is existence. So existence itself reveals itself, and that itself is full and complete, and therefore it is Ananda. So Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, Vijnanam Anandam Brahma. Brahma is of the nature of Vijnanam, of the nature of knowledge, or of the nature of awareness. And that itself is Ananda, that itself is fullness or happiness. Ityadi Brihadaranyaka Vakyasya Sadbhavat. So therefore there are many statements of Upanishads which reveal that Brahma and Ananda are one alone. Ma evam, and therefore don't think that Brahma is not there in deep sleep. All obtains in deep sleep also is experience of happiness, which is the same as experience of Brahma. So is verse 61. Brahma Vijnanamanandam Brahma Vijnanamanandam Iti Vajasanena Iti Vajasane. Oh, I'm sorry, we are not here. Where are we? Oh. I was in the next page, So no, that's not right. I said, how come we only jump to 61 verse? We're in verse 55. I'm sorry. So how did it happen anyway? So the earlier verse said that this one in embrace does not know outside and inside. And similarly also the Jiva who is in embrace with Brahma does not know anything outside and inside. What is outside and inside? When it says that in deep sleep state, one is unaware of outside and inside, what do you mean by the word outside and inside? Atra dashtan dashtandikavakyasthayoho bhashyabhyantra shabdayoho vivakshadamarsam kramena dashayati. So what was in the Drishtanta illustration, the words were used bhashya and antara, external and internal. What does it mean with reference to the experience of deep sleep? Let me explain in verse 55. Okay. Bāhyam ratyādijam vrittam grihakrityam yathantaram tatha jagaranam bāhyam Nadisthasvapna antaraha. Again, in case of this man, what is outside? Ratyadi. Ratya means a street. And so, Bhashyam Ratyadiyam Vrittam. Vrittam means Vrittantaha. How one totally does not know what is happening outside. Grihakrityam yathantaram, and one does not know what is happening inside. So within the house, what happens in the house is called inside, and what happens out in the street is called outside. Similarly, there is a common meaning of the word outside and inside. But what is the meaning of the word outside and inside with reference to this experience of deep sleep? Tatha jagaranam bhashyam. Similarly also, when this jiva is in a state of deep sleep, he doesn't know anything about the waking state. Jagaranam bhashyam. So, the state of waking is called outside. Nadisthaha swapnantaraha. And the state of dream is called inside. Because in the waking state, my attention is always outside, extrovert. Then alone it can be called waking state when my consciousness goes out through the sense organs and contacts the objects of the world. So when that kind of an interaction with the world, objects of the world is there, then alone it is called waking state. Therefore, Mandukya Upanishad says, Jagratasthanah, then Bahish Prajnah. So one who is in the state of waking is called Bahish Prajnah, meaning whose Prajna or the consciousness is outward or extrovert. Naturally, because that alone is called the state of waking when there is contact or interaction with the objects of the outside world. Therefore, the waking is called outside. And what is dream state? Dream state is when I am no more in contact with the outside world, whereas I am experiencing what we call an inner world. Nadistha, the Upanishads say that at that time, this jiva or the individual is very, very in the deep sleep state. So it says that in the waking state, the individual is in the eyes, meaning in the sense organs. Any experience is the objective world. In the dream state, he is supposed to be in one small, very fine nerve, which is called Puritada. So in the dream state, the jiva enters a small, very fine nerve, and there the mind projects the dream world, and he experiences the dream. That's why we say dream is an internal experience. In the deep sleep state, it is said that the mind merges into ignorance, and then the place is the heart. So this is what is the belief there, and this is, so there are three places. The waker is in the sense organs, in the right eye. The dreamer, sometimes the state is, the place is said to be the throat or in a very fine nerve, and the deep sleeper is supposed to be in the heart. So it is said, Tatha Jagaranam Bahyam Naristah Swapna Antaraha. The Swapna or the dream state is called Antaraha. It's called inside, because there the jiva is in nadi, or in a small little nerve. Nadistha Jagradvasana nadi madhyere pratimana prapancha swapna iti uchyate. We know very well that what is dream is nothing but a world projected by the mind, based on the impressions gathered during the waking states. So, based on the impressions gathered during the waking state today and yesterday and in the past, those impressions, the predominant impressions of them, become the very cause for the projection of the dream world. But dream world is inside, waking is outside. In the deep sleep, one becomes unaware of both these worlds, and therefore, because there is an embrace of Brahma. Alright, continuing. Jivaha suktau brahmananda rupaniyo avatishtade atra yukti pradarshana paravaha atra pita apita bhavati ityadikayaha shrutehi tatparyamaha. Again, recalling our attention to what was discussed or mentioned in the past, how this jiva, the individual self in the state of deep sleep, obtains as the very Brahman which is Ananda, and how can it be that is also shown by the Upanishad with yukti of reasoning, which was mentioned earlier, atra pita apita bhavati. Here, how the father becomes non-father. Meaning, what is the one who is father in the waking state sheds off his burden as father and remains non-father in the deep sleep state. So verse 56, the next verse, shows what is meant by that particular statement of the Upanishad, where it is said the father becomes non-father. Verse 56 is, we have been saying that one of the important functions that this Prakarana Grantha, such as this treatise, such as Paṃcadaśī, one of the important functions that they perform is to explain the Upanishads. Upanishads are explained by Bhashyakara, all right, but still, some of the ideas which may not have been clarified there are very well clarified by the such texts as Paṃcadaśī. So really, these texts can be looked upon as a commentary upon Upanishads and Brahma Sutras in its own way. Not every statement of Upanishad, but important statements of Upanishads. This serves as a commentary and also a compilation of the statements which are scattered in many places in the Upanishads. All of them sometimes are compiled into one place. Thus, these texts help us to gain a perception of the teaching of the Upanishads. So verse 56 also is a commentary and explanation of that statement from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, atra pita apita bhavati. Says verse 56. Pitapi suptavapiteti, pitapi suptavapiteti, adau jivatva varanat, adau jivatva varanat, suptau brahmaiva no jivaha, suptau brahmaiva no jivaha, samsaritva samikshanaad, samsaritva samikshanaad. Pitapi suptau apita ityadau jivatva varanat, suptau brahmaiva no jivaha. So, because the Shruti says here, ultimately, after supplying all the reasons, also the ultimate praman, or the ultimate means of knowledge or authority that we have is only Shruti or the Upanishad, Veda or Upanishad. And therefore, Pitapi Supto apita ityado. When the Upanishad says that in the deep sleep state, this father becomes non-father and so forth and so on. As you said, the wounded becomes non-wounded and the sick becomes non-sick. And so, iti ityado jivatva varana. Thus, those statements the Upanishad say that in deep sleep state, there is no jivatvam. What is jivatvam? That sense of individuality or limitation. So that sense of limitation or individuality is not there at all in the deep sleep state. So this, when it is said pita, father becomes non-father and mother becomes non-mother, that father and mother, all of these represent what we call the complexes of an individual, which is what we call jiva. And these complexes are totally absent. Atra suptau adhyasikanam pitruttvadi jivadhamanam. And understand, it is Atma or the self that takes himself to be father, takes himself to be mother. Atma is Brahman, takes himself to be a small being because of identification with the body. This is called adhyasa or superimposition. So on account of superimposing the limitations or attributes of the body upon the self, one suffers from the limitation of the sense of smallness. And that adhyasa or superimposition is no more than a deep sleep. Shrutya eva nivaritatvat. Shruti herself says that there is no jivatvam or sense of limitation in deep sleep. Supta brahmhi no jiva. Therefore in a deep sleep state, this one is Brahma, not jiva. No jiva. No in Sanskrit also means the same as no in English, but little more emphatic. In Sanskrit, no means is a combination of two letters, na and u. So na means no, and u means definitely. So no means definitely no. Supta brahmhi no jiva. That in deep sleep state, this jiva is no more jiva, this one self is no more jiva, he is Brahma alone. Why is it so? Samsaratva asamikshanat. Asamikshanat apradite, because we do not experience or we do not find any samsaritvam or the sense of limitation in deep sleep state. Jivatva pradita brahmata eva avasishyate ityartha. Since there is no experience of jivatva, therefore what remains there is brahmata. Brahmata meaning the state of being Brahman. So Shruti also shows with reasoning how in the deep sleep state the self becomes Brahman, no different from that. Again a question. Nanu pitruttvādi abhimāna bhāvepi sukhittvādi samsārah kim nasyāt. The Upanishad says that there the father becomes unfather, or what do you call it, as non-father, and the mother becomes non-mother. I don't know whether it's right or wrong, but then apita, in Sanskrit we just add a, which is na, In English we add non, I guess. So, father becomes non-father, mother becomes non-mother. Okay. Pitruttvādi abhimāna abhāvepi. But how do you say that there is no samsara? He is not father or mother or whatever, but how do you say that in deep sleep state there is no samsara? Sukhittvādi samsārah kim nasyāt. Isn't that you say that in deep sleep one experiences happiness and therefore, so that experience of happiness is there, so how do you say that samsara is not there? Iti ashinkya samsārasya dehabhimāna mūlatvat. What we call samsara? This life of limitation, life of seeking, life of transmigration is because of dehabhimana or identification with deha. That's all. So the answer is very simple. What we do in deep sleep by grace of God is what we should do awarefully in the waking state. That's all when you are a wise man. So what gets accomplished effortlessly in deep sleep state needs to be accomplished deliberately in the waking state. That's all. Then you experience the same thing that you experience in deep sleep. Then also it can be experienced, as a yogi can have an experience of that same ananda in samadhi. That Brahma I am. But what happens in deep sleep, therefore, deep sleep is a very important experience. And the Vedantic teachers have paid a lot of attention to that experience, because we can learn a lot from that. Therefore, Swami Ramatirtha used to say that people think that merely by understanding their experience of the waking state, that they have understood the life, but that's not so. Because our life consists of not only waking experiences, but also dream experiences, and also deep sleep experiences. In fact, between dream and deep sleep, we spend essentially the same amount of time that is spent in waking state, and still, whenever I think of myself, I always think of that limited individual which I experience myself in the waking state. Why don't I say that I am the one who is experiencing happiness in deep sleep, which would be equally a valid statement, but we don't do that. But that's why that experience of deep sleep is taken up for analysis, because it teaches us something about our own self. That without any reason at all, and without any conventional sources or means of happiness, how I experience happiness in deep sleep? Where does the happiness come from? There is only one source, and that is myself. And therefore, the experience of deep sleep is often presented as an evidence that self is of the nature of happiness. And what happens in deep sleep, as we said, is a total freedom from dehabhimana or identification with the upati. Samsarasya dehabhimana mulatvat. Since what we call samsara or a life of limitation is because of identification with the body. By body we mean gross, subtle body, both. Tat abhave abhavaha. Therefore in deep sleep, since that identification is not there is no samsaritvam also. Iti manvanaha tat pratipadakam. And again, a quotation from Brihadaranyaka. See, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad has so much discussion about the deep sleep state. Of course, they have discussion about everything. About dream also lots of discussion, deep sleep also lots of discussion. So in verse 57, the author gives the meaning of the statement from Brihadaranyaka. It says, Tino hidara sarvan shokan hridayasya bhavati. Says Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, that tada, at that time in the deep sleep state, hridayasya sarvan shokan tirno bhavati. One crosses all the grief in the heart. If the deep sleep is not there, I think people will get crazy in no time, But there is a tremendous relief there, that even the person who is most sad, he also becomes totally free from all the sadness in the state of deep sleep. And that vakya, the statement, is explained in the verse 57. Pitruttvadhyabhimano yah sukha dukkha karassahi tasmin pagate tirnah sarvan shokan bhavatyayam. Pitrutvad abhimanoyah, one who is identity, one who is the abhimana, or one who is the notion that I am father, or I am mother, or I am brother, or I am sister, or I am whatever. Sukha dukkha akarasahi. Akara means a mind. This is a mind of happiness and unhappiness. That's called samsara. As I described it earlier, and Swami very formally at least is described elaborately, how every notion becomes a source of unhappiness. However, he takes role on account of identification of the body. So this fellow he takes himself to be father. And the moment he thinks of himself as father, there is blood pressure. Because the moment he thinks of himself as father, he remembers his son. And who is the son? Fellow is dropped out from college and doesn't do anything. He rides on a motorbike which is given by his father himself, and wears one mala which is given by his mother, with his shirt and the top buttons which are open, his chest, broad chest showing, with afro hair or something like that, and riding on his motorbike without a silencer, So this fellow, when father thinks of the son like that, he gets blood pressure right away, So any kind of a complex I have about myself, whether I take myself as father, mother, even teacher, it's not an easy thing, to become a teacher. Think of your disciples and all kinds of things that are happening, and thank God that he doesn't have blood pressure, but otherwise, definitely, you will have. So, any kind of a role that when all the problems all belong to the role, and when I'm identified with the role, naturally the problems of the role belong to me. As I say, every role necessarily has a problem, just as in a play. Whatever role that is, it must have problems. If the role doesn't have a problem, it cannot be a play. There must be plots. There must be problems. There must be mysteries and all kinds of things. Otherwise it becomes like this. that this man is handsome, and is strong, and is intelligent, and in the school he always was, first rank. In the college also 4-point average. Even for PhD he was a gold medalist. He got a job simply straight away as a manager. Then he married to a woman who also was just like that. Also straight and gold medalist and everywhere perfect. And that husband who also was the same. Suppose this kind of drama is there, Who's going to say so? This will not last even one night because people want to see always plots. Everybody knows that such a life is not there. So when there is a plot, then there is a role, there must be a plot, and there must be problems. I am husband, problems. Wife, problems. Son, problems. Anything. Anything means problems must be there. Because husband or wife or son or daughter, each of these notions only arise on account of identification of the body. The husband is the body. The wife also is body. But when I take myself to body, then I take myself to husband, wife, son, brother, whatever. And sukha dukkha karasahi. This fellow, therefore, he is nothing but a mind of happiness and pleasure and pain, constantly suffering. So what happens in deep sleep? He happily sheds off all his responsibility. That is the state of sannyasa, The state of deep sleep is the ideal state of renunciation, where one has completely renounced all the duties. When one takes a vow of renunciation, sannyasa, what does it have? What does one do? One takes a vow of renouncing all the duties. From now on, I have no duty. But duty is a burden. If I have your duty, answering telephone 1 to 4, then or 1 to 5, whatever it is. Since morning you think, 1 to 5, I have to do that. And then, so you start worrying about it from 11 o'clock itself. You are studying something, 11 already. And that is how the duty to be performed always is a burden on the head. So who is a sannyasi? One who has renounced all the duties. Imagine how nice it is. That means he is totally free. So he is a free person. Of course, the thing about this is, when you give duties, you don't get any privileges also. So when you renounce duties, you renounce all privileges and you renounce all claims also. Which is, in the deep sleep state, all duties are renounced. All complexes are renounced. That's why even external renunciation also takes place before you go to sleep. You may have gone to a dinner or something like that, must have been well dressed with the shoes and overcoat and all kinds of things and tie and jacket and whatnot, and you come out and start throwing these things one by one, Why? I want to go to bed, I want to go to sleep. And so nobody wears these shoes and stuff like that, or ties and jackets, and so everything is removed. That's all. All these things are removed, renounced. My costliest things also are renounced. All the ornaments also. In India, women, when they go to parties and things like that, wear all kinds of ornaments, very heavy stuff. I don't know how they carry that stuff around, but anyway, even their sari is also very heavy. But once you come home, all the burden is given up. Why? Preparation for deep sleep. That's the first level of renunciation. And then you renounce your gross body, awareness of that. You renounce your subtle body. And as total renunciation happens in deep sleep, therefore you experience that ananda or happiness. They call it bliss, whatever you call it, the experience. Because the total freedom from all kinds of burden. Tasmin apagate, therefore when all this burden is given up, sarvan shokan tirnaha ayam sarvan shokan tirnaha bhavati. This jiva becomes the one who has crossed all the shoka or all the grief. Thus, in deep sleep state, there is that experience of a freedom from grief. Again a question. Nanu udahurtabhi shrutibhi na sukha praptihi mukhatha abhiyamana upalabhyate. See, all these statements of Upanishad that you have quoted so far, all of them say that this fellow becomes free from the burden. Meaning one becomes free from all the burden of sadness or sorrow and everything else, or worries and anxieties and complexes, which one has during the waking and dream states that one becomes free from this burden in a deep sleep state. But these statements do not say that he experiences happiness. But we said it is the same. Giving a burden, meaning also being abiding my own self, which is happiness. So therefore, in the verse 58, the author refers to a statement from the Kaivalya Upanishad, which clearly says how the jiva becomes one with Ananda in the deep sleep state. Tatra abhidhana param Kaivalya Shruti Vakyam Arthatah Pathati. That in the deep sleep state there is an experience of happiness is what is stated clearly in the Kaivalya Upanishad, and that statement is referred to in the verse 58. And that way, this verse explains that mantra from the Kaivalya Upanishad. Sushupti kale sakale, sushupti kale sakale, viline tamasavritah, viline tamasavritah, sukharupamupayiti, sukharupamupayiti, brute hyatharvani shruti, brute hyatharvani shruti. Sushuptikale sakale viline tamo vibhuta sukharupameti. This is what Kaivalya Upanishad says. In the 13th mantra of Kaivalya Upanishad, Sushuptikale sakale viline. Sushuptikale at the time of deep sleep state. Sakale viline, when everything is completely merged. Sakale jagradadi lakshane prapanche viline. What happens in deep sleep is that all the waking state and all the dream world, all of that gets completely resolved. The whole waking state gets resolved, the dream state also gets resolved. Where does it get resolved? Swa-upadana bhutayam tamah pradhanayam prakrito vilayam gate sadi viline sat tamasa. So it is said that the waking gets merged in the dream, and the dream gets merged in the deep sleep, which is characterized by ignorance, or what we call the primordial ignorance. So what obtains in the deep sleep state is total darkness of ignorance. In that ignorance, all the experience of waking and dream, they get totally resolved. So that ignorance, this also will be subsequently discussed, a very interesting discussion, but ignorance itself becomes upadanam, or the material cause. So what obtains the ignorance in the deep sleep state alone becomes the dream state, and that alone becomes the waking state. So the real upadana of the material cause of the creation is ignorance, according to Vedantins. According to scientists, the material cause of the creation is energy, because they find that this matter, when you keep subdividing it, ultimately it resolves into what they call energy, which is not perceptible. We say that if you further process that idea, you will find that it completely resolves into ignorance. And ignorance also completely resolves into consciousness, which is the self. So deep sleep state is an experience of complete resolution of the waking and dream experiences into what we call the ignorance, which is the material cause. So upadana bhutayam tamah pradhanayam prakrito. This particular text, in the very first chapter, talked about prakriti. So prakriti means matter, or prakriti means that energy, if you want to call it. And they have said that this prakriti is threefold. When this prakriti is predominant in sattva, then it is called maya. When the then prakriti is predominant in ignorance with a little bit of tamas, with a little bit of sattva, it is called avidya. And when the prakriti is totally tamas, then it is called the world. So Ishvara, Jiva and Jagat. All these three are nothing but a reflection of Brahma in prakriti. So prakriti or the matter, sattva, Vishuddha Sattva Pradhana, when the Sattva is predominant, that Brahman identified with that Prakriti is called Ishvara. When ignorance is predominant, Brahman identified with that Prakriti is called Jiva. And when it is pure ignorance, then Brahman identified with that Prakriti is called Jagat. So it says, Swa-upadana bhutayam tamah pradhanayam prakrito. So this Prakriti becomes a very material cause, and the waking and the dream state experience is all totally resolved in that. Tamasavritah. Then the jiva is completely enveloped in darkness. Completely enveloped in darkness of ignorance. Taya prakritya avritah achhaditah. Jiva sukharupam upayati. Then what happens? He attains the state of happiness. That sukha is nothing but Brahman. Therefore, jiva attains the state of happiness of Brahman. Sukharupam brahma upayati. tasyaha shrutehi arthaha. And thus the Kaivalya Upanishad says that in the deep sleep state, the jiva positively experiences happiness. Not only there is a total release from the burden of unhappiness, but there is also the experience of positive happiness in the state of deep sleep. Okay, we'll continue. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Vadarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.